Hello, and welcome to Just a Byte podcast, where we discuss dining, blogging, and social media. Your host is Malika Bowling, author, blogger, and president of the Association of Food Bloggers.
Hi, this is Malika Bowling with the Association of Food Bloggers, and we are joined today by Renate Degeorge, who is the Director of Culinary Services for HMS Host. And if you don't know, HMS Host is the company that brings restaurants into the airport and develops their menu and things of that nature. So thank you, Renate, for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Malika.
Oh, sure. And so just to give a little background, the way that you and I met is we partnered together to do the first ever progressive dinner at the Atlanta airport, which I know that you were instrumental in bringing some of the restaurants to the airport that we got to taste and try that evening.
Yes. That was a fun little tour we had, wasn't it?
Yes, it was great. We got to try, I think, about 5 different restaurants in the new international terminal at the Atlanta airport. So I love what HMS is doing, and I know that you're a big part of that. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the culinary field, Renate?
Sure. I grew up in a kind of a classic Italian household, so we were making pasta on Sunday, and a lot of our events revolved around food. So food has been a really important part of my life since the beginning. And then I went off to college and studied some things for a while, and then I transferred. And at first, I was studying equine management, if you could believe that. And I decided I decided the food business was much more of a fit for me. So after graduating, I graduated from Penn State with their HRIM degree, which is Hotel, Restaurant, Institutional Management. So I wasn't in strictly culinary for a while. I was in management in the hospitality business. And then after about 5 years of doing that, I decided I wanted to get my culinary degree and become a chef. And I was really fortunate to work with so many fantastic chefs up and down the East Coast and have a lot of wonderful mentors through the years. And along with that, I've worked for private dining. I worked in catering. I worked for Bertucci's restaurants as well. So I've done chain. I've done manufacturing. For 6 years, I was a manufacturing R&D chef, which is a whole different part of the industry, which is very exciting as well. And then 6 years ago, I decided that I wanted to do something different, and I happened to meet a fellow chef who worked for Host, and he said, hey, you want to work on a lot of different exciting things and, open different concepts, and that's what I really wanted. I wanted to learn a lot about different cuisines. I wanted to learn about Asian cuisine. So, I have the opportunity to do that. I'm working on so much of a variety of restaurants with HMS Host. I mean, last year, I think I opened last May, we opened our first Asian fusion restaurant in Honolulu, and then 2 months later, I was opening a Belgian beer cafe in Newark. So it's very exciting with the
very diverse
we work on. Yeah,
that sounds excellent. So is your favorite cuisine still Italian, or is it Italian or something else?
I have to say my favorite cuisine to cook when I have people over to my home is Italian. I always go back to my roots of rustic Italian cuisine because it's very simple, it's elegant in its simplicity, and I really like to spend time talking to people when I have them over to my house instead of doing complicated, food that needs a lot of prep and takes me away from really being with my guests and my family. So and good rustic Italian cuisine, you can't ever go wrong with that. So
right, and everybody likes Italian, right?
Absolutely.
It's hard to find somebody that doesn't like Italian food. It's so good.
Got it.
So
yeah,
I understand that for sure. So let's talk a little bit about when you bring restaurants into the airport. You're doing something with bringing the local restaurants in a city into the airport so that the tourists there can still eat local even if they never leave the airport.
Exactly.
Can you tell us how you identify which restaurants that you choose to put in the airports?
Absolutely. It's kind of a long and pretty detail-oriented process. We have a development and concepts group, and it's a huge group of talented people who what they do is they collectively as a group they work with the airport authority hand in hand, and what they do is they determine the types of airlines, passenger destinations, frequency of traffic for a particular concourse or terminal or airport as a whole. Take, for instance, when we toured the Atlanta airport, when we won, quote unquote, won the RFP for the international, the spaces in the international terminal, that all came as a package. So our concept team had to figure out what to offer the airport authority that would balance another concept. So it's pretty complex. So what they do is they balance all that information. They review their concept portfolio for brands that we already have partnerships with, like say it's a Wolfgang Puck or Longhorn Steakhouse or a national brand or a more local or regionalized brand like Shula Burger down in the southeast, and we decide what really fits in with that. Then they say, okay, well, we need a certain amount of local brands. Like in Atlanta Airport, it was Varsity and Echo with the Fifth Group and everything. So what they do is they go out, they spend time in the market visiting a variety of restaurants. They talk with the restaurateurs to see who has interest in going to the airport. What are the factors to license their brand, et cetera. So it's a really long, complex process. And then we look at menus. We look at cooking platforms and kitchen styles. Will it work? If we can get somebody local and great in, but the concept really doesn't work because it's a cooking platform. And when I say platform, I mean, what kind of kitchen do we need? What kind of equipment is it? Does it require long time cooking like smoking, like barbecue requires? Will the airport authority let us do that overnight in the airport? So there are all those factors that come into play. And then they put the package together and move forward. And then they bring, the culinary folks in to work hand in hand in the kitchens with these local restaurateurs to make their menu work for the airport.
Okay, great. But you have to pare it down a considerable amount, right, compared to what they offer in their restaurant, probably, right?
It's really interesting. It depends on the market and it depends on the concept. Take Echo. We didn't really pare down a huge amount their menu because so much of their menu works for the airport guests. The biggest issue we have is the fact that folks don't sit for an hour and a half generally eating dinner in an airport. They have to get to their gate in like 35, 45 minutes or such. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so what we really focus on is what we call the ticket time. What the ticket time is as soon as that server brings in that ticket to the kitchen of that food order, how long does it take to cook that food? We can't have food, menu items that take 20 minutes. That's not going to work for our environment. And there are restaurants out there on the street that have items like that. So say it's a bone-in chicken and it needs to be roasted off and it takes a certain amount of time, and there's no way to shortcut it without reducing quality. We don't want to put that item on there. We'll work with that brand or that local partner and say, hey, how much do we sell of this? Is it integral to the menu? Like what's going on with this item? Because I'm not so sure a person is going to want to sit for 20 minutes waiting for their food. We really need to have food items that only take about maybe 10, 12, 15 minutes to cook, shorter times than that. So you take Echo, for instance, a lot of their items, they go in that brick oven, they saute off items quickly. A lot of their food from their street menu, what we call the street menu, in downtown Atlanta, really works for the airport. And then you have other concepts where, take Longhorn Steakhouse as a national brand. They are a concept where we had to kind of work with them a little bit because they have large portions and large steaks, right? So what happens is when somebody goes and eats in the airport, they still want a Longhorn steak, but they might not want that porterhouse steak, that really big cut of steak, because they're about to get on the plane. So maybe we talk about removing that menu item. So there's a lot of those considerations, and we look really hard at every single menu item and go, is this going to work or is this not going to work? We don't really change the menu items themselves, though. We don't change the ingredients. We don't sacrifice any of that. So whatever, Echo with the Fifth Group is using for an ingredient, in their street restaurant, 99% of the time, that's what we're using as well in the airport. So, so it's the same quality. But yeah, you'll see some very abridged menus in certain locations. Chicago O'Hare has a macaroni grill, and you'll see that menu is much smaller than the street menu. It's a very, very busy restaurant. And it's in a terminal that is has tight time frames of layovers. So we have customized that menu to put items on there that we know will cook in 6 to 8 minutes. But it's still the same food that you get, in a macaroni grill on the street. So, it's a very interesting process. It is.
That is interesting, and it's just something that people don't think about when they think about airport dining and what all is involved. That's why I asked the question. And but like having eaten at Echo at the airport myself, I can tell that none of the quality was sacrificed at all. We had the honey fried goat cheese, which was fantastic, and the short rib stuffed peppers. Yes, which were incredible as well. And, I didn't miss anything from that. I mean, I thought it was just a terrific meal, everything that we had there. So kudos to you all for doing such a great job to bring those menu items into the airport.
Thank you. And I'll pass that along to the chef there, Michael Patria. He's done a fantastic job. And he works full-time for us with Host, but he works in Echo, and he's the chef for Echo at the airport. But he also works hand-in-hand with the chef at the downtown location. So they talk and they go, okay, what do you have coming down the pike for your seasonal menu? What are you working on? Because it might be slightly different, but they might both have the same theme, work with some of the same ingredients, have some of the same recipes, or they might be, go in two different ways and just be similar. So it's really a neat relationship that we continue to have with that local restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then one of the other things you sort of touched on when you said that you don't change any of the ingredients or anything like that. And now I remember that during our meals at some of the restaurants at the airport, you talked about how you source from local vendors, and that was very surprising to me. Can you talk about how you do that? Because I would think that would be very difficult.
Yes. Well, in some airports, it's a lot easier to do it than others. And for instance, in Atlanta, we have a lot of great local vendor partners, and you'd be amazed, we have these produce companies in certain parts of the country that bring in locally made cheeses, locally made preserves, locally made pickled vegetables. Recently, I did a project in North Carolina, and the airport authority, right before opening, they said, we need to have local items on that menu, and we need to have them called out on the menu. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I scrambled, because I didn't formulate the recipes in the menu with local in mind, but once I started digging into what I already had sourced, it was amazing how many of them were local. People don't know in certain areas of the country that a good portion of the produce isn't coming from California or Mexico or Chile. It's being grown in Georgia, or it's being grown in, South Carolina or North Carolina, which is local to whatever airport that we have. So how we really do that and how we approach it from a corporate level is somebody like me, when I'm formulating the menu and I know the requirements of local, or I really want a local flavor to it, I work with the procurement person on site. Say in Atlanta Airport, we have a very strong procurement person who knows and has the partnership with the local vendors. So he knows who to go out to and go, hey, I'm really looking for local Georgia blueberries. When do you have them? When do they come in? Can you make sure that you reserve this amount for us so we can call it out on the menu? So he works with them individually in that kind of nature. You take California, we just opened a few restaurants in San Diego recently. What a fantastic place to feature fresh avocados, ripe avocados from California. And then you have all the cheese making there, Point Reyes cheeses and the blue cheeses and everything. So, and then you can add California wines to it. So it's much simpler in certain parts of the country than others, but you can almost always find one or two local items to really highlight in the menu. Going back a little bit in the North Carolina example, at least 2/3 of the produce that we ended up with on that menu was local to the Carolinas, and I thought that was fascinating. I had no idea that was going to be the case. So this really is kind of refreshing, because it looks like certain companies and our distributors out there are really, really trying to source their products locally whenever possible too, because that demand is there from local restaurants as well.
That's something you're just seeing all over now. With this, the locavore movement is just so important right now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. My philosophy is, why bring in a mango from Chile when you have a great maybe a muskmelon from North Carolina that you could do a fantastic salad with. Why use the mango, you know? So, I mean, sometimes you compromise and you do obviously bring in, you know, people want tomatoes. They want them year-round. People want strawberries. They want them year-round. Well, they're not always going to be local, you know. But if you really try to make an effort to bring 4 or 5 items in always local, then you can do it. And I think it's important for us from a sustainability standpoint as a company, as a large company, to be doing those kinds of initiatives and really bringing in the local purveyors.
Well, great. Yeah, I definitely applaud your effort in doing that. And I know there are a lot of people that are appreciative of that for sure. So shifting gears just a little bit, can you tell me what are some of the constraints that you face when you're working with an airport or when a chef is working within an airport restaurant kitchen?
That one is a great question because what we do is really unique at Host because a lot of times we develop a menu and recipes around a kitchen and the equipment that we are kind of, you know, I don't want to use the word forced, that sounds very bad, but it's kind of required to use in that kitchen because of space. We have some very tiny kitchens. We have to be very creative about processes and how we're going to do these really great, inventive, fresh dishes without having any issue with food safety and making sure that they're not going to be, you know, take 20 minutes to cook the item because of this issue. So I'll give you an example. I have a restaurant that we're opening in Birmingham, Alabama airport, and it is a very small kitchen. I think it's about 700 square feet. It is non-vented, and what that means is you can't have any cooking equipment that create significant heat that would require a big hood system with a fan on top of your roof, et cetera, in you know, kind of layman's terms. I can't use any of that equipment. So I have a little special oven that does a combination of convection and microwave cooking, and I can do different settings with it. And then I have a little microwave, and then I have a little steam table. But I don't have a fryer. I don't have a grill. I don't have all of these things to work with. And I knew doing the menu that I was going to have those restrictions. So you learn to be very creative about how you do certain foods, and you learn to really think outside of the box as a chef, which is a lot of fun. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being creative inside of a box. And then you have, you know, the situation where some of these kitchens can only hold 1 or 2 people, you know, at one time. So it's not like you can produce a ton of food very quickly. So you start really looking at flow and storage and shelving and being creative about, you know, it's like if you had a really tiny apartment in New York City and 2 people living there, you start thinking about very creative ways to store your items, you know. You have multi-purpose furnishings in an apartment like that. And that's kind of how our kitchens are. So, so yeah, we definitely have challenges with that. I often get envious when I work on several of those projects in a row, and then I go into a kitchen that's a full, you know, vented kitchen that's huge. I go, oh, boy, that would have been nice. That would have been a lot easier to do my recipes for this kitchen, you know. So, but it is a lot of fun to do that. So I think Malika, really the 2 issues are the type of equipment we have to use. We have limitations with that. We can't, you know, sometimes these little combi ovens, you can't do certain things. You can't do French fries in them. You'll never get a good French fry out of them, so we're not going to do it. You know, you can't do a char-grilled burger, which, you know, that's what people like in an airport. They often want something very familiar when they sit down and eat at a casual dining restaurant in the airport, and burger is one of our highest sellers, and I can't do it out of those kitchens. So, you know, you have to think of other offerings, and can I do a really cool beef hot dog, or in Chicago, can I do a really cool Chicago dog instead and please those people and make sure that, you know, we can serve our guests what they want. So that's what really, you know, is going on in my head when I'm working on these menus. How can I create something that's going to bring them in and have them sit down, and they're not going to miss that hamburger and that French fries. They're going to be very happy with what they get. So.
Great. Well, that's pretty fascinating. Well, I know that I wasn't missing a hamburger or anything that night that we had our meal at the airport. Everything at every restaurant was just wonderful. And again, you know, I love that you guys brought the local restaurants into the airport. So that was just a lot of fun and really enjoyable. Now, if you could tell me, maybe you could give us a sneak peek, what are the next airports that are going to get the Eat Like a Local revamping?
Yeah, we just, I'm going to talk first about a couple we just opened in the past couple months, and then I'm going to tell you a few that are upcoming this year. We've had a lot of local activity in LAX, in our Los Angeles location, and we have some exciting things that have just opened in there. A couple local brands that we've worked with there is Umami Burger. There's another local brand that's a pizza concept called 800 Degrees. We partnered with 2 celebrity chefs for Border Grill, and we partnered with Michael Voltaggio, who I'm going to say he won Top Chef, or he a couple years ago. He's a local guy from here in Maryland. I
think it was Top Chef.
I think it was Top Chef too. So yeah, he has some restaurants out in LA, and we partnered with him and put in his sandwich concept InkSack into the airport. So that all happened very recently, just in the past 6 months, I'd say. And then we're in Minneapolis. We're bringing a Minnesota Wild hockey bar. So it's kind of like a partnership with a sports team, but it's also featuring Minnesota Wild as far as ingredients and products that come from Minnesota, which is a pretty cool little combination of things. And then in Toronto, we are putting in a couple of new concepts with some Top Chefs, Roger Mooking, Suzar Lee, Lynn Crawford, a local deli called Kaplansky's, and a local Mediterranean concept called Paramount, which are all local to Toronto, the city of Toronto. And Fort Lauderdale, we're bringing in a Shula Burger, which is a regional brand down there in Florida, and a Sergio's Cuban Cafe, which is a family-owned Cuban restaurant from Miami. So we do a lot of different things with these. We have little regional brands like Jim and Nick's Barbecue out of Birmingham, Alabama. They're a regional brand. They're mostly in the southeast, but we have one that we partner with them in Birmingham Airport. So we do a lot of those regionals, but these...
That sounds exciting. Well, I'm going to have to make it up to Toronto and Minneapolis and check out all these fun new restaurants you've got there. Yeah. Well, Renate, I know that you travel a lot, obviously, with your job and working with all these restaurants. So what is your favorite airport?
Well, I really love so many of our locations. And for very different reasons. So I'm going to touch on a couple of them.
Okay.
Charlotte Airport is one of my favorite locations, and it's mostly to do with the fact that I've spent a lot of time there opening restaurants, and I just love the people. They have such a southern hospitality there at Charlotte. We do a lot of business in Charlotte Airport. We have a lot of the spaces there at Host, and they do just such a great job, and they have this warmth and hospitality that is just fantastic. So I just love going through Charlotte Airport. And then really, though, my favorite place to eat and going through an airport is Chicago O'Hare. I love we have an internal brand. Like we partner with local brands, but we also create our own brands and our own restaurants. And
okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I mean, a good portion of what I do is create those little local brands. And what we did several years ago, I think it's been 4 years now, in the middle of the terminal where you're walking through from one terminal to another, it's just a space in the terminal. It's not even like a separate restaurant. We built a sushi bar called Wicker Park. And what we did is we went to the airport authority, we proposed a sushi bar, and they said we really want it to reflect something about Chicago. So we named it after a neighborhood that was up and coming in Chicago, Wicker Park, which is pretty cool. And then the sushi bar is fantastic, and the food is phenomenal. And it was the first full-service sushi bar restaurant that opened in a North American airport of its type. And we were very, very proud of that. And all the sushi is made there. We bring in the fish fresh. It's all cut there. It's not like somebody off-site of the airport is making all sushi and bringing it in. It's all made there. So it's a really fantastic concept, fantastic sushi. We have a wonderful sushi chef in there who's very creative, has wonderful daily specials. So I have to say that's my favorite place to eat when I'm traveling is Chicago O'Hare. So for everybody listening out there, if you want some really great sushi while you're on the road, definitely go to Wicker Park and Chicago O'Hare Airport. It's fantastic. So.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now I'm hungry now just thinking about it. I think I should have had lunch before we had this call because my stomach is growling now.
I can talk food all day. I make myself hungry talking about food, so I understand.
Well, I really do appreciate your time today, Renata. That's all the questions I had for you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
That I've given them something to think about as they travel through the airport, and a little bit better, understanding and a little bit more of an appreciation of what goes on back there behind the scenes, and as you're, traveling and eating in an airport. So I thank you for the opportunity to share that and share a little bit about what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing with us your insight and the process that you go through. You've given us a lot to think about, and again, just to reiterate, we love that you're bringing these local restaurants into the airports all around the country, and I guess all around the world, because you guys are worldwide.
We are, yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, I hope you get to travel all over as well. And so, again, thanks for talking with us. Again, this is Malika Bowling with the Association of Food Bloggers, and we've been talking to Renate Degeorge, the Culinary Director for HMS Host. Thank you again, Renata.
Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye. Bye.